Hi guys, my name is David and welcome back to my channel. I wasn't planning to do this video at this time, but I've decided to do it anyway. And the book that I'm going to be reviewing today is The Green Mile by Stephen King. This originally came out in 6 volumes and I have 5 of them already. And the first one is called The Two Dead Girls. The second one is called The Mouse on the Mile. The third one, which I don't have, is called Coffey's Hands. The third one is called The Bad Death of Edward Delacrox, or Dell. The fifth one is called The Night Journey, and the sixth part is called Coffey on the Mile. This has obviously got a movie based on it as well, and if you haven't read the book, then chances are you've either heard of the movie or you've watched the movie. But I'm going to do this video kind of a loose discussion type of thing, and I'm going to talk about this book to someone that maybe hasn't watched the movie and doesn't know what this book is all about. So before I get into all that, let me just say my usual things here, that this is going to be a spoiler-free video and this is going to be my own thoughts and feelings regarding this book. So this book focuses around our main character, who is our main narrator, called Paul Edgecombe, who at the start of this book, he is an elderly gentleman staying at a care home, and he's retelling the story about when he was a guard at a death row institute at a prison, which they called the Green Mile. And the reason why they called it the Green Mile was because they had all these tiles everywhere that were lime green, and maybe they called it the Green Mile as well, that because it was literally the last mile that these convicted criminals would ever walk until they were executed on one of the characters, which is a very unusual character, which is called Old Sparky, which is the electric chair. So Paul is a very fair but harsh prison guard. He knows that these convicted men are evil, but he wants to try to actually make their last days as, I won't say peaceful, but as calming and as pleasant as he possibly can. And he does this because he doesn't want them to cause a fuss and make his job or his colleagues' jobs any more difficult than they need to be. Paul knows that these men are evil, even though they don't appear to be evil at first, but he knows that what they've actually done, and he knows that they will be executed in Old Sparky's lap at the end of the day. So one day, Paul and his colleagues get a new recruit, or a new prisoner, called John Coffey, who is this massive mountain of a black man, and he is massive, he is muscular, and he seems to be a very aggressive guy just by looking at him and appearances. He is huge. And John Coffey, who is this character's name, has been convicted of murder. He has been found holding the bodies of 2 deceased white girls, and he's been crying over them, and he's been found in this state, and it's just an open and shut case, and he's been convicted, and he's been found guilty, and he's been put on death row. But John is not what he appears to be. He gives me the impression that he has a very childlike quality and innocence to him, kind of like what Tom Cullen had in The Stand by Stephen King. He's a very sweet man. He isn't violent whatsoever, and the first thing that he asks Paul when he comes into the Green Mile is that, do they leave the lights on at night because he's afraid of the dark? Another character which we are introduced to is Percy Wetmore, who is one of Paul's colleagues, and Percy is extremely unlikable. He gets off on having all this power and authority over these prisoners, and he seems to get off on that as well. It gives him a thrill and a sense of power. He's not good, although he's technically not evil either. He's not Randall Flagg or Henry Bowers. He just has this insatiable need to control things and have power over them. And one of these other prisoners, which is called Edward Delacrox, or Dell for short, is a very sweet man. He's a French man in the book, and even though we know exactly what he did to actually be put on death row, and we know that he's a really evil character and he's done evil things, I'm pretty sure he's actually murdered someone in the book. He is a very nice man. He's very gentle, he's very sweet, and he comes across this mouse in the mile, or on the mile, called Mr. Jingles, which goes by another name, which is called Steamboat Willie, which is the boat in the, I think it's the first Mickey Mouse animated movie or short or whatever. Mr. Jingles, even though he's a mouse, he is very intelligent. I mean, I know mice are intelligent enough as it is right now, but Mr. Jingles takes it to a whole new level. Dell and Mr. Jingles spend all their time together, and they do all these tricks with each other, and they become friends. Percy sees this, and he has an extreme dislike for Dell, and vice versa. And one of these other characters, which is called William Wharton, or Wild Bill, which is his nickname, he is extremely unlikable. He is pretty much a douche, and he tries to be a massive disruption to the system at the Green Mile, and to try and make Paul and his colleagues' working lives as miserable as he possibly can. And he knows that, well, that he's been put on death row and he's been sentenced to death, so no matter what Paul and his colleagues do to him, they can't really do much because he's been sentenced to death. So what can they do more than that? So Paul and his colleagues go off, and they spend a lot of their time at the start of every execution doing a rehearsal of the execution. So they do a dummy run type of thing to make sure that nothing goes wrong, and to make sure everything goes smoothly, and make sure that everything goes as smoothly as it possibly can. So as the story progresses, Paul notices John Coffey even more, because Paul has this urinary infection, which whenever he urinates, it causes him loads of pain and agony. And John has the ability of healing people by touching someone with a illness or that is deceased, and has the ability to bring them back to life, or to take away their illness and their infection and their disease, which he does to Paul, and he also does to Mr. Jingles when he is stepped on by the wonderful Percy. But John's powers don't really stop there. He has the ability to read people's minds and to know what they're going to say. This kind of gave me the impression that maybe John has a type of The Shining. Now, I know that The Shining, even though it's kind of blurry to me, it's not really black and white about what exactly it is to me, but I'm pretty sure that The Shining, you can actually read people's minds, but you can't really cure people's illnesses and bring them back from the dead. But I strongly believe that John has a type of Shining. So when John touches Paul down there, I'm pretty sure it's down there, and he actually cures Paul's urinary infection, and Paul is completely baffled by this, and he's in awe. And at that point, he knows that John didn't commit this murder and what he's been convicted of. He knows his innocence, but basically there's nothing he can do about it. It's just basically about a waiting game for him to pull the switch in old Sparky and roast this person. So despite the fact that Paul and his colleagues have seen John do this and have this ability and this power, they know there's nothing that they can do to prevent it. It's just this ticking clock that's slowly ticking down. Whenever you turn a page, it's one step closer that John has to the electric chair or to old Sparky. There is nothing that the reader or Paul or anyone can stop this from actually happening. So some people may look at this book and see it as a racist thing, that there's this black man that's been convicted for wrongly killing these white girls with no evidence. And I don't think that's the case, even though in this book some characters, they do give you the impression that they do have a bit of racist thoughts in them. I strongly believe that that's not what this message of this book is all about. I strongly suspect that it's got more to do with the fact that John has been wrongly convicted because of the way he looks. He is a massive guy, and he's been holding the girls, and he's been basically caught in the act. So it's more of a judging a book by its cover type of thing. Judging someone by their appearance and not questioning it, not looking into it further. And that's what I think this book focuses on. This book is a very calming book to read. I found this an absolute pleasure to get through. I both read the book and I also listened to it on audio as well. And there wasn't a part of this book which I didn't enjoy. This was a very enjoyable, entertaining book that I really found intriguing. There wasn't a character that... Okay, some of the characters I didn't like because they were supposed to be evil, but I did find them sort of intriguing, if that made sense. And this book is a very horrific book. It's not horror, it's kind of a supernatural book, but there is a horrific scene where Dell gets put in old Sparky's lap, and the section that he gets executed in describes his death as the bad death. And simply referring to Dell's death as bad is an understatement. So Stephen King describes Dell's death in graphic detail. It describes it about how Percy was responsible for executing Dell and how he botched it. And as a result, it made the procedure more painful for Dell, how he screamed in agony, how smoke was rising from the hood that they put over the guy's head, how he was roasting like a turkey, how he smelt, how his eyeballs exploded. It is the most horrifying thing that I have read for a while, and I read horror, and it was so impactful. It really was. So at this point you may be thinking, David, what's the difference between this and the movie? Well, this focuses a lot on some characters that aren't in the movie. There are characters in this which aren't in the movie, which are minor. They didn't have to be in the movie, in my opinion. What else? Also, in the care home which Paul is residing in, there is this kind of employee there which is kind of like a Percy. Even in fact, Paul describes him as being Percy and perceiving him to be Percy. But this employee is very demeaning over Paul and the other residents. He looks down on them because they're old and feeble and they need to be taken care of and all that type of stuff. And also the ending is different as well. The ending is slightly different as it explores Paul's personal life. So what I rated this book is a 5 stars out of 5. I know that it is currently March at the time I'm recording this video, but I read this in February, and I know it's the start of the year, but this is a contender for my favourite books of this year. This was absolutely perfection. If you aren't sure about where to start off with Stephen King, or maybe you want to read this author but you don't want to read his horror stuff like Christine, It, The Shining, but you want to read something else by him, I would read this. This is absolutely perfect. It really is. So that's it, guys. That is my review on The Green Mile by Stephen King. Have you read this book? Let me know what you thought about it. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Let's have a discussion about it down below in the comments. Let me know if I've maybe encouraged you or inspired you to pick this book up and give it a try. As I said, there is an audio version of this, or numerous audio versions of The Green Mile on YouTube, so if you don't want to pay the money for the book or the ebook, please listen to it on audiobook. It is absolutely amazing. So with all that out the way, have a great day, read some awesome books, and I will see you all in my next video.